You will not believe the sheer audacity of what's happening. All over social media, tourists are sounding the alarm on the blatant Las Vegas price gouge. This coffee, for example, it might look appealing, but it costs an outrageous $28. This is nothing short of legalized robbery. This woman is in utter disbelief over the cost of her breakfast. How in the world is that $100? And this man is issuing a dire warning. Stay away from the hotel minibar. This is a pathetic amount of potato chips. Unbelievably, those tiny boxes are $12 a piece. These women are in absolute shock. We were just forced to pay $50 for a salad. Yes, it's completely absurd. This tourist has finally hit his breaking point. We paid $20 for a single Coke, and the consequences are dire. This June, tourism in Las Vegas plummeted by a catastrophic 11.3% from the previous year. This week, we witnessed a wasteland of empty casino tables and a hauntingly sparse Las Vegas strip. Is Las Vegas in a death spiral right now? It's undeniably in a slump and people are terrified to spend their money. But the root cause must be attributed to what everyone is calling the Vegas gouge. I mean, it's infuriating. After the pandemic, they didn't welcome people back, they just jacked up prices and buried them in new fees. They were shamelessly extorting the public, and people have finally had enough. Meanwhile, the CEO of the Plaza Hotel and Casino cynically suggests that if there's a great deal, tourists will magically reappear. His hotel is now dangling an all-inclusive package as bait. Vegas is not dead. What is he even talking about? It is dead, and it's bleeding out by the day. How many times must I scream this from the rooftops? These Las Vegas news outlets keep peddling the fantasy that everything is fine, when it's clearly a disaster. Granted, they have to admit the numbers are down because even a blind man could see the collapse. But they dare to speak as if this is just some temporary hiccup. It is not. If the tyrannical resort fees, which I must remind you never used to exist, along with predatory price gouging like parking fees, another scheme invented out of thin air, continue to be pushed by the corporate cronies bleeding this city dry, then the exodus of tourists will absolutely continue. But these corporations, and by the way, we're talking about literally just two of them that own the entire strip with an iron fist. They don't care because they're making more money than ever despite the lower turnout. As long as they keep the high rollers coming and tighten their machines to pay out less while tacking on endless fees, they'll be fine. Those whales and upper-class tourists will keep paying, even if it means driving normal working-class families into the ground. The last man in that clip, his casino is located off the strip, and yes, in those locations, the numbers are actually up. People are sick and tired of being bled dry by the casino chains owned by those two mega corporations. So, they've wisely found alternatives. Good for them. But here's the insidious truth most won't tell you. Even if downtown casinos are the lesser evil, most of them have still adopted these same tyrannical fees that never existed before. It's a poisonous trickle-down effect of pure greed. Whatever predatory tactic the strip casinos get away with, the other casinos are sure to follow. So, even those so-called better places are a pale shadow of what they once were. This toxic trickle-down effect is a plague that hurts everyone, especially the locals who are trapped working within this corrupt system. Just listen to this poor man's story and how his life and his dreams are being systematically destroyed by the deceitful practices driving tourists away from the strip. We've been covering the alarming decline in visitor numbers all summer, but now we're hearing the devastating human cost from workers who are struggling to make ends meet. News 3's Andrew Nomura just spoke with a hospitality industry worker caught in this very crisis. So Andrew, what's the reality on the ground? It's no longer just about the cold data showing a decline. Now we have real people with empty wallets. A terrifying reality compared to this time last summer. That's exactly right, Kim. Take Sebastian Espinoza. We had a chance to speak with him. He's a busser for Caesars, forced to live by the whims of an on-call schedule. And he says when times are good, his phone is ringing constantly, but this year there's mostly silence. A silence that has shattered his personal goals for the future. My girlfriend and I, we were planning to start a family next year, to buy a house, to finally seize that piece of the American dream that everyone deserves.
Right.
But is that even a sane decision now when I see half my money has vanished and my savings are gone? How can I even think about a mortgage now? Let's be clear, my life isn't at a standstill, but it's been absolutely crippled by this. And listen to this outrage. Espinoza reveals it's become a nightmare to find work, a near impossible task, even with over a decade of hard-earned experience in the hospitality sector. And it's not just him. His colleagues are witnessing the same chilling decline in foot traffic, a ghost town forming right here on the Strip. The situation is most dire in the dead of night, when the city should be roaring to life, a truly alarming sign. And the proof is in the pudding. This comes right after the Harry Reid reports from the LVCVA on Tuesday exposed a staggering nearly 20% drop in visitors from Canada. And make no mistake, that is a catastrophic blow. A full 20% of all visitors to Las Vegas are international, and the lion's share of that crucial demographic comes from our neighbors to the north. Yet the tourism officials are trying to placate us, claiming this disaster is merely a temporary slump. They call it a long-term relationship and insist they'll figure it out. In fact, I'm being dispatched on a desperate sales mission to Canada in just a couple of weeks, as if that will fix this mess. They tell us we've faced crises before and recovered, but then audaciously claim this is not that. They dare to call it a mere downturn, pointing to a supposed great lineup of fall events as their saving grace. They boast about a spectacular lineup of sports and entertainment, repeating the tired mantra that Las Vegas knows how to recover. It has become so catastrophically bad that they're now deploying traveling salesmen to beg people to return to Vegas. It's utterly absurd. I've never witnessed such a pathetic display. This city used to sell itself. It was once a magnificent escape, a place of pure, unadulterated fun for everyone. From singles needing to blow off steam, to gamble and party, to couples seeking a romantic weekend escape, and even families where every single person, regardless of age, could find their own brand of entertainment. But, as I've warned before, if they refuse to address the root of this cancer, which is their sickening obsession with high rollers and wealthy foreign tourists, at the expense of everyday working-class people, a fact proven by them literally flying emissaries out to plead for their return, then nothing will ever change. I have made it my personal crusade to constantly remind everyone of the hollow shell Vegas has become and the vibrant soul it once was. We must keep this fire burning, this conversation raging, if we ever hope to resurrect the old Vegas we all cherished. I'm not here begging you to return and prop up their failing system. Not even for the workforce, though it tears me apart to see them suffer. No, this is for something far greater, for the chance for all of us to truly enjoy Vegas once more. To purge the parasitic corporate greed that is strangling our beloved desert oasis, we must finally make a stand. For now, our most powerful weapon is to keep this conversation alive. A constant roar demanding the return of the real Las Vegas. I have more damning testimony for you today from the very people who lived it. Veteran visitors and employees who have watched this city for decades. They will tell you in their own words the tragic story of what Vegas was versus the travesty it has become. I implore you, do not let the memory of how magnificent Vegas once was fade, because the moment we forget is the moment all hope of bringing it back is lost forever. Burn that into your mind as you listen to these accounts. With that dire warning, let's begin with story number 1. Imagine this, $39 rooms. $2 shrimp cocktails. I've been a witness to this city's decay for over 30 years. My first pilgrimage, I was 21 years old and completely broke, staying at the legendary Old Sahara. My room cost a mere $39 a night. And that price, unthinkably, included free parking, absolutely no resort fee, and even coupons for those legendary $2 shrimp cocktails downstairs. That first night is seared into my memory. We checked in, threw our bags down, and plunged directly onto the Strip. The sidewalks were a surging river of humanity, people brandishing those infamous yard-long margaritas. Street performers were a part of the chaos everywhere you looked. They weren't shamefully caged into designated zones like they are today. You could drift into any casino you pleased, and no one gave you a second glance if you weren't immediately feeding money into a machine. We'd find a nickel slot, and like clockwork, a cocktail waitress would appear every 15 minutes with free drinks. It made no difference if you were betting a pathetic dime or a whole dollar. You'd slip her a $1 bill and she'd make sure your glass was never empty. The food? It was scandalously cheap. You could devour a $4.99 prime rib special, then stroll a block and find a $1.99 breakfast deal. And the entertainment? Half the time you could score free show tickets just for putting in a couple of hours at the tables. Now, brace yourself as we fast forward to my most recent and likely last trip. I was booked at a strip resort that had the audacity to charge $199 a night, plus a disgusting $45 a day resort fee. Parking was another $25 a day. Before I even set foot in my room, I had already been bled for more money in fees alone than my entire budget on that first magical trip. I went downstairs to a bar and ordered a simple gin and tonic. The bartender looked me dead in the eye and said, "That'll be $18. $18 for one gin and tonic." And no, putting money in a machine didn't matter. Apparently, you now have to grovel and earn enough points before they deign to grant you a complimentary drink. What a disgrace. Vanished. The nickel slots have been ripped out. The $2 shrimp cocktails, a distant memory. Now, the only special is a $99 surf and turf served in some celebrity-branded mausoleum. And though the neon still screams and the fountains perform their nightly ballet, it's all just a hollow spectacle. I'm haunted by the feeling that the very soul of Vegas, that glorious, chaotic blend of cheap thrills and reckless generosity, has been clinically excised and replaced by a cold, unforgiving calculator. Remember the $1.99 steak? It was the meal that fueled a generation of dreamers. Back in the early 2000s, it was my sacred ritual, my pilgrimage every time I hit this town. The legendary steak and eggs, served up in a humble coffee shop hidden deep within my favorite downtown casino. But it was never just about the price, even though that was utterly unbelievable. It was the entire vibe, the raw energy. You'd stumble in at 3 in the morning, reeling from a brutal blackjack session, and the place would be electric. A table of weary locals, still in their work shirts. A pack of college kids devouring a mountain of pancakes. And a cocktail waitress, uniform and all, grabbing a quick meal before her long drive home. And let me tell you, that steak wasn't some pathetic, wafer-thin excuse for beef. No, this was cooked to order. A juicy, sizzling lifeline, served with a pile of eggs and hash browns engineered to absorb a river of bad decisions. And this being the real Vegas, the waitress would slide you a Bloody Mary for just $1 more with an understanding look that said everything. That single meal was the city's promise. We've got your back. Win or lose, flying high or crashing hard. Rich or broke, in this town you could feast like a king on nothing but pocket lint. But that was then. Now, that same casino has been gutted, remodeled into some cold, sterile nightmare, and that coffee shop is gone, erased. In its place stands a gourmet dining experience with soulless decor and a menu that reads like a ransom note. A simple breakfast will now set you back a staggering $27. And that's before you even think about coffee. And the crowd? It's a different species entirely. No one connects, no one lingers. They shovel in their food, snap a sterile photo for their feed, and then they're just gone. The servers can't even crack a smile. They're too busy being run ragged. Drowning under too many tables, the beautiful late-night chaos is dead. That incredible melting pot of high rollers and graveyard shift workers has been completely sanitized away. I forced myself to try that $27 breakfast once, chasing a ghost. The food was fine, technically edible, but as I sat there, chewing, a sickening realization washed over me. It was never, ever about the food. It was about the feeling of belonging. That $1.99 steak was a pact. It made you feel like this city was in your corner. Now, every single bite is just a cold, hard reminder of the bill you're about to pay. A time when parking was free and the air was thick with laughter. I landed a job as a valet on the Strip back in 2005, a time from another world when parking was actually free and the tips were generous enough to pay my rent. It was the greatest show in Vegas and I had a front row seat. Every car, every guest, every wild story, they all began and ended right there with us. I'll never forget the Friday nights, the line of cars snaking for what felt like miles. Convertibles with the tops down, music thumping into the desert air. Families spilling out of rental vans, fresh from the airport and wide-eyed with excitement. And then the obligatory Lamborghini roaring up as if it owned the damn street. Guests would emerge beaming, electrified, ready to conquer the night. And because parking didn't cost them a single cent, the tips flowed freely, without a second thought. You started to recognize the faces, the regulars. There was this one character from Texas who rolled in every month in a cherry red Corvette. He'd toss me the keys with a conspiratorial wink and a grin, saying, "Don't you dare scratch her, son!" Then he'd press a crisp 20 into my hand and vanish into the casino. And at the end of their stay, you'd hear them laughing, truly laughing, as we brought their cars around, trading stories about the jackpots they'd hit or the absolute madness they'd witnessed. And then, the darkness fell. Paid parking arrived. The suits claimed it was industry standard, a necessary evil for improvements. But we all saw it for the lie it was, a shameless, predatory cash grab. Instantly, the mood soured. Guests were now arriving angry, grumbling before they even walked through the doors. That $25 a day shakedown poisoned the well. Their generosity dried up. Tips became scarce, sometimes non-existent. Now you look out at the valet lot, and it's a ghost town. The locals have abandoned us. They refuse to be fleeced just to park where they once felt welcome. The tourists just take ride shares, so we never even see their faces. The entire front drive, it just feels dead. There's no music blaring from car stereos, no banter with the regulars we knew by name. Just a line of us valets, standing and waiting for a car that might never come. This city used to roll out the red carpet for you. Now it feels like they've slapped a parking meter on your soul the second you pull up to the curb. And the $5 buffet, the very thing that made this place possible for guys like me, let me tell you about the 90s. I was in my early 20s and absolutely destitute. I'm talking digging through the car seats for gas money broke. My friends and I, we would scrimp and save for an entire year, all for one glorious long weekend in Vegas. And when I say saved up, I mean we scraped together maybe $300 a piece to last the whole trip, gambling money and all. We'd crash at the Old Sahara for a mere $39 a night. The room was nothing special. Just 2 double beds, a tiny TV that barely got a signal, and a stunning view of the parking garage. But who cared? We didn't, because the real magic was waiting for us downstairs. On that first morning, we stumbled into the hotel's coffee shop, bleary-eyed, and saw the 2 most beautiful words in the English language. All-you-can-eat breakfast buffet. The price? A miraculous $5.99. A mere $6 bought you a feast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs, fruit, and coffee so potent it could jumpstart a dead man's heart. And the real prize? They didn't give a damn if you sat there for 2 hours exercising the demons of your hangover. That buffet wasn't just a meal. It was the sacred anchor of our entire trip. We'd crawl in from the wreckage of the night before, eating until we were paralyzed, then drag ourselves to the $5 blackjack tables where the dealer was a human being who'd actually share a joke and let you think. But fast forward to the grim reality of last year, when I dragged my wife back to Vegas. I was desperate to show her that ghost of a memory. The Sahara, erased from existence. We were trapped in a soulless strip property, hemorrhaging $189 a night, plus a fraudulent $45 resort fee for services that never materialized. The breakfast buffet? An obscene $38 a head, and they had the nerve to charge extra for coffee. We endured it once, a pathetic pilgrimage to a desecrated shrine. The pancakes existed, but the soul was gone. The staff herded everyone through like livestock. The coffee coffee was some artisan swill that tasted of bitter resentment. And the couple next to us whispered in horror about how they'd already incinerated $500 on the slots before even seeing a menu. In the days that mattered, that $6 buffet was a promise that Vegas actually wanted you there. Now, this city feels like a predator. Its hands in your pockets before your first cup of coffee, searching for every last cent. And that friendly dealer who knew your name? I was that dealer. I started slinging cards in the late 90s, back when the casino floor was a nightly explosion of life, a real party. My first post was at the Stardust. God, I ache for that place. Even before my shift, I'd walk the floor just to absorb the electricity, the sirens' call of the slots, the raw roar of laughter from the craps tables, the heavenly scent of the $4.99 prime rib special, drifting like a prayer from the coffee shop. When I tell people I knew my regulars by name, they scoff like I'm telling a fairy tale. I'm not. I had my Chicago boys who rode in every February for the rodeo, a retired couple from Phoenix who made my table their Easter sanctuary, and a platoon of Navy buddies who treated Memorial Day weekend like a sacred duty. I knew their poisons, whether they liked their cards dealt high or low. I even knew which ones clutched secret lucky charms in their pockets. If you sat at my table for a few hours and treated me with a shred of respect, I'd quietly slide a comp slip your way. Sometimes it was for a steak dinner that actually tasted like steak. Sometimes it was for a lounge show, the kind where you could just wander in, drink in hand, and sit close enough to see the soul sweating out of the singer. It was never about whether you were betting $10 a hand or $100. The mission was to make you feel like you mattered, that Vegas itself had invited you. We had the luxury of time to talk between hands. I'd lean in and tell you about the miracle worker on table 4 who just turned $100 into $8,000. Or I'd point out the cocktail waitress navigating the floor with a drink the size of a cannon for some bachelor party lunatic already dancing with the carpet. The bosses would stroll by and offer a genuine smile. The game wasn't about speed. It was about ensuring you were having the time of your life. Now I'm a cog in a machine at some sterile, modernized strip property. I swear to God, it's a factory. The pit bosses stalk behind us with tablets, digitally branding our every move. Hands per hour, every minor infraction, even the seconds it takes me to shuffle. If I slow down to be human, I get the glare. If I joke too much, I get a write-up. Comps? That's a sick joke. Unless you're bleeding out at least $50 a hand for hours, you won't get so much as a voucher for their pathetic excuse for a buffet. And when I say buffet, I mean the $55 per head feeding trough they dare to call an experience. The players feel the chill. They come in, get gutted by the predatory rules, and they vanish. I will work entire shifts without seeing a single soul at my table crack a smile. Vegas used to be the great escape. Now it's just a debt you pay in real time. And the lounge singer who could make a janitor feel like a high roller? I lived that world. I was a cocktail server at the Riviera in the early 90s, and the best part of that job wasn't the money. It was the lounge. Every night after my shift on the chaotic main floor, I'd escape into the Riviera Lounge, my tray a vessel of joy for a crowd that was half-hardened locals and half-lost tourists who'd stumbled in searching for something authentic and fun. There was no cover charge. You could buy a $3 gin and tonic and sit 5 feet from a live band that was dangerously good. And at the heart of it all was this one lounge singer, Joey Martino. Slicked back hair, a tuxedo that had seen more than most men, and a voice that carried the weight of 100 broken hearts. Between songs, he was a master, working the crowd, telling jokes, dedicating My Way to some guy in the back celebrating the end of a war he called marriage. We'd get the whales in there sometimes, men with $10,000 chips in their pockets. But inside that room, under Joey's spell, everyone was a titan. You could be a school teacher from Iowa, nursing your drink for an hour, and Joey would lock eyes with you and deliver a wink that said you were the most important person in the entire godforsaken town. But now, the lounge has been obliterated. The entire building wiped from existence. If you dare to seek out live music on the strip, be prepared to be gouged for $75 tickets. not even counting the outrageous fees. Or worse, you're crammed into a deafening nightclub where the music is so punishing, you can't even hear your own thoughts. The very soul of the place, that incredible feeling that you could just wander in, spend a few dollars, and be treated like absolute royalty. It's been systematically dismantled. Vegas was once in the business of making memories. Now, it's just a cold machine for printing receipts. Let me tell you about the showgirl's glittering past versus its tarnished present. I was only 21 years old when I first set foot on a Las Vegas stage in full, breathtaking costume. Back then, being a showgirl wasn't a job. It was the absolute pinnacle of glamour. The blinding lights, the oceans of feathers, the intoxicating music. We were the very face of this city. People would literally stop us in the lobby just to take a photo, even when we weren't in costume. And the most shocking part? The shows were everywhere. You could casually wander into a showroom after dinner and for a mere $25, witness a full-blown production that put Broadway to shame. When I think of the real Vegas, I remember the sacred little moments behind the curtain. The makeup mirrors framed by the harsh glare of bare light bulbs. The scent of hairspray so thick in the air it could literally choke you. That crackling, nervous energy as the band started to warm up. And then, the moment those stage lights hit, it felt like the entire world vanished, leaving only the music and the ocean of smiling faces reflecting back at you. After the show, we'd actually go out and mingle with the guests in the lounge. Couples in their 60s would tell me with tears in their eyes that it was their 40th anniversary and our show was the highlight of their entire trip. Groups of girlfriends would swarm in, decked out in matching feather boas, giddy from $2 margaritas they'd scored at the casino bar. Nobody cared if you weren't a millionaire. You could still feel like the most important person in the world for a night. Today, the grand production shows have been all but executed, unless they're shackled to some giant corporate brand. You don't just wander in. You have to book months ahead, paying an obscene $200 per ticket, only to sit beside someone watching the whole damn thing through their phone. The intimacy has been murdered. The joy has been extinguished. Even the sacred costumes, those handmade, rhinestone-encrusted masterpieces, have been replaced by cheap, mass-produced junk designed to look good on Instagram rather than to dazzle a human eye. And the guests? They look miserable. They're stressed out. They've already been bled for thousands before they even see the stage. $500 for a hotel room, an insulting $60 for weekend parking, and a staggering $100 for a couple of cocktails in the lobby. When I walk past the theaters now, I swear I see people checking their watches more than they're watching the show. I will always treasure my time as a showgirl. But when people ask if I'd want to do it today, I just give a sad smile and tell them it wouldn't be the same. Because this thing they call Vegas now is a grotesque imitation. Vegas once sparkled for everyone. Now its light only shines for those who can afford the outrageous cover charge. That is the heartbreaking truth I have for you today. It's impossible not to become emotional making these videos. Vegas used to be something legendary, and now it's just a hollowed out shell of its former glory. We have a duty to talk about the good old days of Vegas, now more than ever, and we must constantly hold them up as a mirror to the disaster it is today. The only way we can ever bring back our great city is if we refuse to let the memory of its glory days die. Maybe I'm a fool, but I still believe we can resurrect it someday if we continue to scream until our voices are heard. Please, share your stories of what Vegas used to be for you versus the nightmare it was the last time you went, assuming you've even been brave enough to return. I desperately need to hear your perspective. Thank you for watching. It's time we vote with our dollars and force this city to remember what it once was. I know this was a depressing dose of reality, so watch the video on the screen next to remember the great things that happened in Vegas during its golden years, the soul we're fighting for.